All right, everybody, welcome back to Waves and Simple Harmonic Motion. This is the last topic we're going to be covering, which is just relating simple harmonic motion to energy. Specifically, we're going to look at pendulums and then masses on springs and how that relates to energy and conservation of energy. So if you take a look at this first example, we've got a pendulum here on a string being pulled to a side by about a 30-degree angle. And there's two questions. What's the period of the pendulum and what is the maximum speed reached by the pendulum? The period is pretty straightforward if you think back to our formula that we learned last time, where the period of a pendulum is 2 pi times the root of length divided by g. And so summing in our values, 2 pi times root of 1.5 over 9.8, we end up with a period of right around 2.5 seconds. So pretty straightforward, but then the next question, what is the maximum speed? Now you can imagine if we pull the pendulum to the side here, it's going to reach its maximum speed when it comes back swinging through our equilibrium point. So this is the point here where it's going to be its max speed. Now we know the length of the pendulum is 1.5 meters, but in order to determine how fast it's traveling, we would want to know really what is the change in height here? Like how far does it fall from when it's pulled aside down to its lowest point. To find that, we can actually we can draw a little line across here, and you'll see that this produces a right angle triangle right here, where this side is the hypotenuse is the length of the string, and this length here is also 1.5 meters. But you'll notice if we have this distance here, which I'll just call A for adjacent, you can see that A plus H has to add up to my 1.5. So if I can solve for A using a sine ratio or cosine ratio, then I can figure out H. And so that's what we'll do. So we could say that A would be equal to length times the cosine of 30 degrees, which is 1.5 cosine 30, which is about 1.299 meters. Knowing that H is just the difference between those two, H is just going to equal L minus A, which works out to about 0.201 meters. All right, so now we know how far the pendulum fell as it swung through its equilibrium position, and now we just have to relate this back to our conservation of energy equation, which basically just says that EK1 plus EP1 is equal to EK2 plus EP2. Now, initially starting off here, this pendulum is pulled to the side. It's gained height, but it's not moving, and so the initial kinetic energy would be 0. And when it's swung through its lowest point, we can consider that our 0 potential energy point, and so all of that potential is turned into kinetic. And this is also 0. Essentially what we have here is just that the potential energy we start with must equal the kinetic energy that it ends up with at the bottom. Substituting in our formula for EP and EK, we have mgh1 is equal to 1/2 mv2 squared. And we notice again that the mass of the pendulum is irrelevant in terms of its speed. And then solving for v is equal to the square root of 2gh. Subbing in our values, 2 times 9.8 times our height of 0.201, we end up with a speed of approximately 2.0 meters per second. Okay, so now let's consider a mass on a spring. We looked at masses on springs last time. This time the mass is just sitting on a frictionless floor. It's just going to oscillate back and forth. So initially the mass is sitting at some equilibrium position, and what we're going to do is we're going to compress the spring. So the spring gets compressed, and the mass is sitting there, and it's moved to the left from our equilibrium position. Now because this spring is compressed, once we let it go, it makes sense that it's going to go sort of flying back, moving along. It's going to reach its equilibrium position again, and then it's going to surpass that. It's going to kind of stretch out, and it's going to go past our equilibrium position. And we know that at each of these points, basically there's going to be a transfer of energy between potential to kinetic, back to potential, back to kinetic, and it's going to go back and forth like that. So at this first position here, where I've displaced myself by a certain displacement x, we can see that it's going to have a whole bunch of potential energy stored. Once we release it, it's going to go flying through its equilibrium position at a certain velocity v, and all that potential energy that was stored up is going to turn into kinetic energy. Assuming the floor is frictionless and the spring is an ideal spring, this will then oscillate until it's reached that positive x position, and all of that energy will again have transferred back into potential energy, and so on as it goes back and forth. So the other thing to take a look at here is what's going on with our forces. So for example, when this spring is compressed, there's going to be a spring force trying to push it back in this direction. And once it's stretched out, the spring force is going to be working back in the opposite direction, trying to return it to equilibrium. If we were to plot the spring force versus the displacement x, I will notice that this initial displacement here would be negative x. We can see that our spring force is a large positive value when we're at a point negative x. So when we're at negative x, we have a large positive value. When we're at 0, the force at this point would also drop to 0. And so when x is 0, the force is 0. And we can see that when we reach a large positive value of x, we have a large negative value for our spring force. Because of Hooke's law, this relationship here is a linear one. So when we plot a graph of spring force versus displacement, we get this straight line graph. You note that it has a negative slope, and that's not a big surprise because remember our formula for Hooke's law looked like this: fx equals negative k delta x. And so we can see the relationship between f and x is a direct one, and as we and a large spring force value, positive spring force value, happens when our displacement is negative, and vice versa. So if we find the area of this triangle, finding the area of this triangle here, just imagine I'm going to look at this, just this region right here, and I'm going to find this area. Area is going to be equal to 1/2 base times height. Now the base of this triangle really is my delta x, and the height of this triangle is the spring force, and so this becomes 1/2 x times spring force. But we know that spring force is equal to k delta x, so this just becomes 1/2 x times kx. And so this area under this graph here really represents the energy stored in the spring. And so the work done on a spring is going to equal 1/2 kx squared. And a reminder that work is really just any change in energy, whether that's potential or kinetic. Okay, so we've got a mass on a spring question here. It says 1.3 kilogram mass on a spring is compressed by 45 centimeters. When released, it oscillates with a period of 2.2 seconds. What is the top speed of the mass? So there's two pieces here. We know that the work done on the spring equal to a change in energy is going to equal 1/2 kx squared. Now, when this spring is completely compressed, that's a change in potential energy. But when that spring is released and it's traveling at its top speed, all of that potential energy is going to turn into kinetic. And so this could be our change in kinetic energy is equal to 1/2 kx squared. However, we don't know the k value, but we remember from last time that the period of a mass on a spring is 2 pi times the square root of m divided by k. Solving this equation for k is going to equal 2 pi over t squared times m. And so substituting in our values, 2 pi divided by 2.2 squared times 1.3 gives us a spring constant of 10.6 newtons per meter. All right, substituting our k value in here to our change in kinetic energy, we can say that our change in kinetic energy is 1/2 mv squared, and that's equal to 1/2 kx squared. And solving for, notice that the 1/2 will cancel out. Solving for v is going to equal the square root of kx squared all divided by m. And our values, 10.6 times x, which is 0.45 meters, divided by the mass of 1.3 kilograms. And this gives us a top speed of right around 1.3 meters per second. All right, that's it for energy.